good morning. Thank you so much for coming. I have one request of you really quickly. It's the morning, so some of us might still be asleep. So stand up really quickly. Stand up, stand up. We participate in Miss Hack's classroom. Take a step to the left. Wrong way. Take a step to the right. Put your hand over your heart. Well, Dr. Foster, I've brought them to their feet, I've moved them, and I've touched their heart, so I think my job's done here, right? Somebody told me recently that you should take your work seriously, but not take yourself so seriously, so that's just making us laugh a little bit and calming my nerves a little bit. So thank you so much for coming this morning. I'm excited to share with you just who is Miss Hack, and who do I aspire to be, what experiences have I had up to this point that have prepared me to student teach, and just a little bit about where I'll be student teaching. A little bit about my teaching philosophy. I really desire to have a classroom that's student-centered, because that's the reason I want to be a teacher. If that classroom is not student-centered, isn't culturally relevant, doesn't have experiential learning, and doesn't have rigorous coursework, really based in scientific principles, then I don't know that I'm doing my job correctly. So putting the students at the center and really making sure that they're learning when they come in the classroom and they're learning when they leave is done, and always is continuing to grow. Before I get into what experiences have gotten me here, I want to show you just a little bit of some experiences that I have had teaching. And so we have labs here at Penn State that we experience teaching with our peers, but also we were able to go out to a different community and do some lessons there, and also got to teach a lesson with my cooperating center. So here's just a quick look at some of my teaching abilities. And I chose to highlight what's called opportunity to learn. It's something that we talk about in education, of how do we provide students opportunities to learn. So you'll see that highlighted in here. So group 2, let's hear be curious. What equals be curious? Ask questions and be curious. Does that sound like be curious? There's some important parts of the engine that are required for each stroke. And we're going to take a look at those. Those are back there. So since we can't hear it, we're just going to skip that part. And you guys are just going to trust me that I do have teaching abilities. And hopefully, because I've been through 4 years here at Penn State, I'm gaining those. And I think some of my experiences will demonstrate that as well. But I can share that with you later if you would like to see that. So when I do get out in the classroom, these are kind of the high hopes. Not only is that teaching philosophy, those high hopes of what I really hope happens in the classroom, but also what do I want to teach and what do I want that program to look like. So I would like to have a plant, animal, food science, and general agriculture course. And so within each of those, they'll have different courses. In my ideal program, each of these will build on each other. This one, students can take all different ones. It doesn't matter which one they've taken previously, but in all the other courses, I really want them to take those before it, simply because you need some biology concepts before you can go ahead and dive deep into some food science stuff. And food science, I think, would be one of my favorite courses to teach. Classroom management is also a big part of being in the classroom, but I think that there's a big difference between classroom management and classroom engagement. And it's been said multiple times to us that the best classroom management technique is an engaging lesson, and I couldn't agree more with that, that if we have students engaged in the right ways, and the ways that they need to be engaged, then that classroom management becomes second nature. But sometimes classroom management is necessary. And Kayla is going to be teaching a welding course with probably 25 boys and maybe one girl. So classroom management might be necessary in a shop setting just to make sure that we are really managing our time and managing that we're going to be safe in that classroom. So if you take a look over at the wall over there, you'll see my classroom expectations and classroom management policies. The procedures of implementing those will look a little bit differently in every class, simply because we will be teaching in 2 different classrooms. But my idea is that we don't just talk about classroom expectations, but we're going to be about those classroom expectations. And those include some things like be here, be ready, be curious, and be safe and appropriate. So I'm excited to set those expectations with my students and that they can hold me to those same expectations as well. So when I am in my own classroom, not student teaching, I hope to have a classroom like this, but also a laboratory, like a greenhouse or a food science laboratory. But when I'm at Peckaway Valley, I get to actually teach in an agricultural mechanics lab. So quick quiz, I said there would be participation. Sarah, you know what this picture is at the bottom? Just take a wild guess. What about the top one? What are those things in the back? Top one is welding booth. Okay, Morgan, help her out on this bottom one. What is that? Piston. Exactly. So I'm going to be teaching some agricultural mechanics classes. In my model program, Dr. Ewing, there is one intro to ag mechanics class. If that could change after I student teach. We'll see how much I like it. But I really want to have that rigorous coursework in the classroom, but also really engaging them in experiential learning in the laboratory as well. Part of agriculture education, for those of you that are familiar with this, you understand the terms classroom, SAE, and FFA. Those of you that are not, let me just give you a quick 101 of what that's all about. So students in agriculture education not only are sitting in the classroom every day or out in the lab every day, but they also have an experience outside of the classroom that's supervised by the teacher. And that can look anything like a research project, or maybe there's fish in the classroom and that student is doing a research project on feed or water with those fish. Or that can look like an exploratory type of SAE, where they're going and shadowing a vet clinic. And these are experiences that I really hope to implement, that I will have those Fridays in the first Friday I've ever done, really implementing what does this look like, what are you doing outside of school, so that they have that time in class to just justify their project to me, but also record their evidence, maybe if they're gaining finances, record that as well. So not only should it be done outside of the classroom, but there should be a component that happens inside the classroom as well, so that our community, our students, and our classroom are all engaged together. That second portion is the FFA organization. Long time ago, this stood for Future Farmers of America. I did not grow up on a farm. That is no longer what that stands for, but based in agriculture, this is our leadership laboratory, or how we challenge students to grow leaders, build communities, and strengthen agriculture. And there's a lot of really cool ways that I'm going to share with you that we can do that in our classroom. The first was going to National FFA Convention, building communities, volunteering at an outreach center, and then strengthening agriculture by simply learning about the agriculture that's happening in your community, but also the agriculture that's happening abroad as well. With any program that has an extra or intracurricular part to it, or is an elective, so my students don't necessarily have to be in my classroom, they choose to take that course, you need to have a little bit of recruitment. So what's fun about this quick recruitment video that we created, this is actually in my hometown. And I think what's neat about this is it shows recruitment, not only a video that shows recruitment, but also these are all eighth graders that came to the high school that day to see the program. And bringing eighth graders who know what's going on in that school program really helps build that recruitment and that interest for when students are coming to high school and not growing classes.
My name is Kelsey Ansel. I'm a junior and I love agricultural education.
FFA named three words would be fun, family, and field trips.
Educational, enjoyment, and service.
Family, festive, and impactful.
Fun, educational, and welcoming.
Means that I am a part of the family I never had.
recruitment is extremely important, and not only have I learned recruitment through high school, but I also worked the Navigators, been a part of that organization on campus, and we do a lot of recruitment, so I'm hoping that a lot of those techniques that we've used in Navigators can maybe come into the classroom a little bit as well. I can encourage my students to be open to different recruitment ideas. Building communities, I mentioned, is one of the big parts of being an agricultural educator. And it's probably my favorite part because I think communities and places are really important. And being faithfully present in those places is extremely important. And I am excited to go to Packaway Valley where I just get to test a little bit of what that community involvement might look like. And so we are going to actually do some intergenerational floral arrangements. No idea how this is going to end up quite yet, but we are going to be teaching those floriculture and floral design principles in the classroom. Bring in an expert. Lancaster is home to tons of different flower shops and greenhouses, and then we're going to go out into one of the nursing homes and build these floral arrangements with the community members there. So I'm excited to see that. My comfort level would be let's go to the elementary school students, but we're going to try the other age group and just see how that works. So I'm excited to try that out because I took a flower arranging class here at Penn State and got to practice a lot of these techniques, and I think it's a really cool applicable skill that students can use. Those are like the big picture ideas that I really hope to implement. Our plans don't always go as planned, but I'm really excited to try some of those things out when I get out into the classroom. But these are the experiences I have had that I believe have really built who I am and how I can encourage and better teach my students. So first off is that I actually started my education journey at Dordt College, which is in northwestern Iowa, and that's Dordt with a T, not a K. And so, a couple of you got that. But yeah, I did my freshman year of college there, and you know, you can say, oh, it's just your freshman year of college, but that really helped ground me in the fact that I really wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be in education. Built really cool community there, and was bummed to leave, but super excited for the opportunities that I've been able to have at Penn State. And I looked back at my emails a few weeks ago, and I saw the email that I sent to Dr. Foster and I sent to Morgan that said, I'm coming to Penn State, can you help? And so super thankful for the ways that they have helped and that I've continued to grow here at Penn State. At Penn State we take tons of different courses, and these are the agriculture education courses that I have participated in, and I would say these are the 4 different areas that we could group those into, and that is the history and context, the student and program development, and then really gaining those methods in those other 2 courses. I am not going to rank any of my favorites in these because I really enjoyed all of them, and I think they're all such different skills that I built through each of those classes. But I will say these are some of my favorite courses. And it's not just because Dan and Deanna are in the room, but I absolutely loved my international agriculture courses, both the ones that allowed me to go abroad and the ones that were based here in the classroom at Penn State, because they really just create that open-minded thinking about agriculture and about people. Same with that curriculum instruction 280 class. That was my introduction to teaching English language learners. And I actually have an assignment that you guys can pass around. This is not for you, okay. Don't worry. This is an assignment that I completed. So the reason why curriculum instruction 280 was one of my favorite courses was because I had just before I took that course, I'd gone to Costa Rica and learned another language and spent 10 weeks, half the time not necessarily understanding what was happening around me because of the language barrier. And then I came back here and realized that I was in a class with 8 other people that felt the same way when I was in Costa Rica. But my students, when there's 1 or 2 students that don't speak English as their first language, that's not the case. They're the 1 or 2 that feel that way. And so really bridging a lot of what in the world are these students going through, what does it mean to learn another language, and to be taught in another language, especially a technical agricultural field. And then the cultural impacts that go with that. So my professor, Andrea Kolb, challenged us to write a cultural and linguistic narrative about our language and cultural practices, which forced me to dive deep, which was a little challenging, but then offered an opportunity for me to present it at a research conference. So I was able to present this paper at a research conference, which is in the format of a letter to my students that might be English language learners. So you guys can feel free to read it. I'll pass it around. Don't feel free to read it, but I'm going to continue, but I'm going to also pass it around. So those are some of my favorite courses. And then I took an educational psychology class at Dort. And I think one of the favorite things that I heard throughout that is Professor Mulder continued to say, teaching is not for the faint of heart. Teaching is not for the faint of heart. Teaching is not for the faint of heart. And I wholeheartedly believe that statement. And I think that learning about educational psychology and implementing educational psychology are two very different things. And it takes someone that's not faint of heart to do that. I've also gained some certifications here at Penn State, CPR, a community instructor for driving a tractor safely. This would not be proper attire to drive a tractor safely. And then a Serve Safe certification, which actually my students will all be getting next semester. So I'm excited that I was able to get that, and then we're going to allow students to go ahead and get that as well. I mentioned the Equity and Social Justice Conference as professional development. I also participated in the National Association of Agriculture Educators Conference and then the one here in Pennsylvania, among various other community opportunities and professional development opportunities. But these allowed for really awesome workshops on inquiry and inclusion and just building those skills and those dispositions to become a better educator. My internship experiences, I think, outside of the classroom have probably prepared me the best for being in the classroom. Recently, this semester and then this past summer, I worked for a company called Vive, a learning solutions company where I actually wrote curriculum for them, was given about 200 standards and said, go ahead, write learning objectives. So that's a dive in deep and really learn what that means. So developing curriculum, implementing curriculum when I worked for the National FFA organization, traveling across the U.S. and training high school students, but also training newly college students in leadership and agriculture education. And then also did an internship at the Lord's Pantry at Hannah's house in Indianapolis, Indiana, which was an outreach center, which builds a lot on the experiences also in Costa Rica and experiences in my ESL course. So it's cool how these have really started to connect to each other. Outside of internship experiences, those transformational experiences I've had, some have happened abroad, traveling to Swaziland, Africa, before coming to college, and then in the center, traveling to Costa Rica. Deanna, Dan, do you know what this is called?
Basket.
What is behind the basket? Anybody?
It's a person. Is it called?
Coffee.
Coffee.
This is called a capuela, and that's what you collect the coffee beans in. So Costa Rica was a really awesome international experience where I did undergraduate research, but also learned a second language, lived with the host family, and would love to go back and would love to lead students on a trip back to Costa Rica because I think it's a very safe place to take students and very eye-opening experience that they can have. And then I also participated on the domestic study away when we went to Tennessee, seeing programs in urban Nashville, Tennessee, and then very rural Tennessee as well. So just getting my feet wet of seeing agriculture in a different state again. That's where I've been. This is where I get to go, which I'm very, very excited about. Pequea Valley is 800 miles from my hometown of East Troy, Wisconsin, but I'm super excited to be in Lancaster County and to be engaging at this school. Pequea Valley has a greenhouse, an agricultural mechanics lab, and 2 teachers, Mr. Doug Mosser and Mrs. Jasmine Van Sant, who are right here. And I'm really excited to work alongside them. Have been so encouraged and empowered by them up to this point, and I can't wait for that to continue into next semester. And I think one of the reminders that I'm definitely in the right student teaching placement was when we went to National FFA Convention, and we went to Dow AgriSciences, so that second picture out there, and the researchers started asking our students questions, and just like that, they were able to answer them with some scientific concepts that sometimes we don't think are taught in agriculture, but this is why we teach science principles in agriculture, because they're needed in the field. And so that was a really awesome opportunity to see them in action. The day-to-day will include these courses. and these units. I would say the unit I'm most excited to teach is the lipids unit. The unit I'm most afraid to teach is the welding unit. But I am excited for all of these courses, and I think I've been prepared well, and I know my property teachers will continue to help me through the nervousness about some of these courses. So I actually chose to, I'm just going to slide through these really quickly, but chose to organize everything online. Franklin Valley is a one-to-one program, so all of the students have computers, and we will as well, and everything is pretty much done digitally. And so this is how I chose to organize my system, so I'm just going to flip through these really quick. They go into each unit, and then each lesson plan, and then that would be an example of a lesson plan. As we know, everything is a process, and teaching is a process, and my entire 4 years at Penn State has been a process. And I, up to this point, have identified some strengths and weaknesses or gems and opportunities as I go forward. Some of my strengths, I would say, is enthusiasm and adaptability and curiosity. I get frustrated when someone tells me I can't ask any more questions because I love to ask questions, I love to learn, and I want to encourage that and really develop that and condition students to really ask those questions and be curious. And then adaptability is a strength, but sometimes frustrates me because I will get in the classroom and have a lesson and this is how it's going to go. Oh, no, I need to change it. That didn't really work. Let's try this again, start over. But I think that's good because students see that too. And if you feel like you need to start over, most likely it's because they need you to. Weaknesses, you just saw my organizational system. That's a big step for me to really try to organize things very, very concisely. Time management, and then I tend to say yes a little bit too much. But have had people around me that have just encouraged me to say yes to the really good things and be okay with saying no to those other things. And so something I definitely know I'm going to need to remember in the classroom and engaging my community to really solicit them to help in those things and really start to love the word delegation. So those are just some of my strengths and weaknesses I feel as a teacher or pre-service teacher. And then this is a group of really awesome people that I got to spend this semester with, probably a little bit too much time with, but we enjoyed it. And I think one of the ways that I can say I left the woodpile higher and really helped my cohort was just being curious and asking questions. So I constantly asked those questions and engaged in more conversation, sometimes challenged ideas to really make the conversation go farther and to make sure that students were at the heart of that conversation. And I am excited that I get to continue the experiences I've learned here, but with high school students next semester. And before I open it up for questions, just in case you are wondering what is on the table over there, I have one of my shop and floor culture projects with the wood box and the arrangement in it, and then a welding project of a clock that we might have students do next semester in giving them some opportunities to do a couple joint welds and also make a really cool project. So with that, I would love, because I love questions, love for you guys to ask questions of me. I just gave you a lot of information of where I've been and who I aspire to be, but I want to know what you want to know.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause for Kayla. We'll go to the audience first. Colby Stewart.
Kayla, what do you feel will be your biggest challenge going into your school and why?
Going into where I'm student teaching or a new school? Not getting dumb.
Well, a new school.
A new school. Okay. So I think one of the biggest challenges is if there's been a program there previously, it's valuing some of those things that might be traditions, but also bridging that with my new experiences and new ideas. So how do I value those two different things and really continue to move the program forward? So really valuing those community and school traditions.
Excellent. We'll rotate in questions from our online audience as well. Ryan Kaiser asked a question, what was your favorite experience in Costa Rica? If you could perhaps frame that out as well.
Favorite experience in Costa Rica. I'm going to give you two, Ryan. So one is that I got to make tamales with my host family. So that was a very unique experience and I really enjoyed that. just anytime that I got to cook with my host family and do something that I really love with people and learn about them, and I think you really start to learn more about people when you're around food. And then the second thing was I went on an adventure waterfall rappelling, so that was pretty awesome as well.
Very nice. Let's take a question from the audience. Kurt?
How do you feel that your international agriculture minor benefited you as a future agricultural educator?
Yeah, in two ways. One, that it completely opened my mind to how agriculture is practiced. So whether that's how we plant, how we fertilize, things like that. So the actual basics of that, just opening my mind to the fact that there are differences and those differences should be there and that's okay. And then opened my mind to just the idea that people are different, but also people all have a story. And so just being open to differences in culture and language and practices and you name it, like everything, just being really open to that. But also it's given me some ways to implement those things in the classroom. So we can talk about international agriculture, animal science, plant science in 3 different courses, or we can talk about international across. And it's challenged me to really go across with that. So how do I involve an idea about international agriculture and how things are done abroad in my animal science class versus in my plant science class?
We've had comments shared from Snowy, Wisconsin, and from Ecuador, but I'll take the question from Techway Valley. Your cooperating teacher, Doug Monster, asked the following question. The philosophy of Techway Valley is mass customized learning, MCL, for all students. How will you customize, individualize your teaching to fit the needs of all of your students?
Throwing me the hard question, Mr. Monster. I think one way is creating different learning aids that will aid students differently, and you can use different techniques. So one of the techniques that I'm actually hoping to use is a thing called Cornell Notes or partner highlighting, where students in reading maybe a very technical piece of material will go ahead and pull out the main ideas and pull out those supporting details, and they'll have those supports in that scaffolding. But if the student doesn't need those supports in scaffolding, you can start to pull those away. So I think that's one way that I'll do that. And then also just creating room for differences when it comes to labs and creating different hypotheses, using different materials, and really customizing it in the technical way as well.
Thank you for sharing. Question from the audience here, Evan.
So Kayla, I know recently you were at NAAE for this work for Ag Ed. Could you maybe share with us one experience or maybe two that really stood out to you that you feel will help benefit you as a future educator?
Yeah, I went to a workshop called D is Delegation. D is for Delegation, and it was put on by a teacher from Wisconsin, and her mentality was that, yeah, I'm a one-teacher program, and I'm queen of the kingdom, as she said, but I can't do this by myself. And so she said, yeah, this job is hard, but put on your sassy pants, you can do it, essentially, because you can solicit help from your community. And she just really encouraged and empowered us to do that, and that's not saying that you're not competent and you're not confident in what you're doing, but it's really soliciting that help. So I'd say that's probably the biggest takeaway, along with some inquiry-based instruction that we get to participate in again. Thanks for asking.
Question from the teacher education panel.
Yeah, I'll go ask a question here. So in your program planning course, we talked about working with volunteers and community members, stakeholders. So as the educator, what is your role in helping those volunteers or guest speakers, partners that are coming into your classrooms? How do you help them be successful? What's your role?
Yeah, I think one is really giving them this is really what I hope to accomplish when you're, so if it's a guest speaker, I'm going to use that example, and volunteer I think is a little different. So guest speaker, when I bring that florist in for that class, I'm going to give them kind of an outline of this is what we're doing over 3 weeks, and this is after your presentation. I'm really hoping what students gain, what else do you think you could bring to the table? So it's creating that open conversation, but also making my expectations clear to have that person come in. And with a volunteer, I think it's kind of back to what Evie's question is, there's when I get into a program, and possibly we can use this at Techway Valley, is a sheet that will go home with the students that they can give to any adult in their family or their life or whatever that might be. And those are things that volunteer says they're good at. Maybe they have a trailer I don't have a trailer, so they can come and help us if we need a trailer. Or they're really good at clerical work and they can come help with that. So really, in letting them use their strengths when they come and help out at our program.
Great, thank you.
Questions from the audience at this point? Okay, Dr. Ross, do you have a question? Okay, I have a question. Last call for questions from either our online audience or from our audience in the room. Appears that we have an online question from Ecuador. The question is from Christopher Owen. It says, how do you approach a student who doesn't have your same curious spirit? How would you inspire curiosity or the love of learning for the new topic in your students?
Yeah, I think that starts with, thanks for asking that, Chris. I think that starts with rapport and really building that rapport with your students, because if you build rapport and relationships, then you can start to see maybe what that student is interested in. And if you gear something toward that interest, maybe it's you can change a lab, or you can, maybe I realize that Sarah is really interested in butterflies. And we're doing a plant science unit, and I bring up the fact that I know that those are helpful with certain plants. And so I'm bringing those little things into a lesson that will really engage them. And then also, sometimes it's just requiring a question to be written down as well. That will start to gauge that building up of questions. I should be thinking of questions.
Well, we have viewers from Tennessee, California, Iowa, Wisconsin, Ecuador, and perhaps most importantly, Techway Valley. And so I want to ask, I believe, your final question for this, your final presentation. When all is said and done, what do you want students, colleagues, administrators, parents, and community members to say about you as a student teacher?
Yeah, I think one of the quotes that I really like is that teachers should be asking more questions of themselves and harder questions of themselves than of their students. If I'm not asking those questions of, do you know your curriculum, Kayla? Are you changing up what you're doing in the classroom? Are you engaging in your community? And asking those hard questions and really being engaged and involved and showing you care with those things, I hope that that is what they will say after my student teaching experience and what I can bring to a classroom in the future.
Thank you, Kayla. We appreciate you sharing your Teach Ag journey. Thank you for coming and supporting Kayla. Give her another round.